Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our show Chessboard, where we discuss geopolitics and geostrategy. You'll be happy to know that in this episode, we could find as guest Professor Kawser Ahmed, who is an adjunct professor of Winnipeg University in Canada. Today, we are going to have two episodes with him. In the first episode, we are going to discuss the role of Canada in shaping the global North's geopolitics. পরের অংশে আমরা আলোচনা করব যে কানাডার যে ইন্দো প্যাসিফিক স্ট্র্যাটেজি আছে সেই স্ট্র্যাটেজির কারণে বাংলাদেশ কিভাবে প্রভাবিত হতে যাচ্ছে। আশা করি আপনারা আমাদের সাথে থাকবেন, প্রফেসর কাউসারকে শুনবেন এবং একটা এক্সাইটিং এপিসোডের জন্য আমরা সবাই রেডি থাকব। অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ। দেখা হচ্ছে চেসবোর্ডের নতুন এপিসোড উইথ প্রফেসর কাউসার। Assalamu alaikum. Dear viewers, welcome to our show. Today we have with us Professor Kawser Ahmed, Adjunct Professor, University of Winnipeg. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Welcome to our show.
Thank you very much. Walaikum assalam, and thanks for having me.
We usually discuss geopolitics and geostrategic issues in this program. This time we are really lucky that we are getting someone like you from Global North, remaining in Global South. So, sir, the first question we are going to ask you, Canada branded itself a middle power, yet its defense spending remains around 1.3% of GDP, well below NATO's 2% benchmark. Given that gap, what measurable contribution has Canada actually made in the past decade that shifted decision-making in the global North?
Thank you very much, Delwar. It's nice chatting with you. And I think the phrase you opened up this session, being fortunate enough from the global North, I don't know whether it's a fortune or not, but I'll take that compliment. And thank you so much, the organization IAG, for hosting me here. And before I get into your question, I will take this opportunity to also share with the audience that we are leading a project from Global Affairs Canada. It's called Charting a Lasting Peace in Myanmar. And I'm visiting Bangladesh in this particular period because our phase 2 of the project is ongoing. And we are consulting with academic institutions, research organizations in Bangladesh. And we are going to refine our concept note that we are presenting over the past couple of months. So I think it's a happy coincidence to be here, and it's always, of course, it's my motherland. I feel really close to coming back. So now back to the business. The last question is very, I would say, timely. Right at this point in time, our country is really, gearing up defense spending. And there are two driving factors, just to remind our viewers, which is really pushing this agenda forward for increased defense spending. One is, of course, the pressure from America, America being the only neighbor and the most important friend in this part of the world. So there is a pressure from Americans. So our government has taken very active measures, especially under Prime Minister Carney's government. We are increasing actually, and I think there is a plan Mr. Carney proposed in the Parliament, and it's going to be over. I think there is a 10 years plan, and we are going to reach and cross NATO's threshold. But again, as you know, because of the ongoing war in Europe between Ukraine and Russia, there is a push also from NATO membership to increase it even 5%. Oh. So, there's a kind of little, I would say, futuristic plan. Reaching 5% will be too much, I think, for Canadians to take on. Because, as the presenter rightly mentioned, Canada claims to be a middle power in a very technical way. I used to teach a course in University of Winnipeg. It's called Canadian Global Affairs. And there was a segment I used to deal absolutely with this concept, how this middle power things, is perceived and actualized on ground.
Okay.
Two things. Canada has a defense policy. Canada always had a defense policy as an independent sovereign nation. But again, this defense policy is very much tailored according to the need. And this is just my own way of expression I'm sharing with you this afternoon. So what is the need? Canada is pretty much insular country. Look at the east, you have Atlantic. Look at the west, you have Pacific. And look at the north, you have North Sea, what you call Arctic. So this is the geopolitical reality that Canada doesn't expect, outright invasion from any hostile countries. But having said that, it is still, wise to spend in defense sectors which Canada over the decades did not.
Yeah.
That is not prudent, of course. But one motivation is geopolitical reality, as I explained, and second motivation is Canada always relied on US.
Yeah.
The capacity of US's military power is enormous, right? And just so that you know, the city I come from, Winnipeg, hosts the headquarters of NORAD, North American Air Defense System. And the leadership in NORAD changes, it rotates between Americans and Canadians. So I think reliance on the United States really crippled the idea of increasing investment. And I think I'll close by saying that Canada has a perpetual problem of defense procurement. Okay. We are absolutely struggling. The submarine fleet you talk about, the aircrafts that Canada promised to buy, J-35 I'm referring to, these are not somehow, actualized in real time. And I don't know, maybe people are researching why procurement is so difficult. So this is how whole situation is shaping up, and I don't know how it is related or can be translated as a middle power, because technically Canada doesn't wield any power. What we all have is economic power. We donate money and maybe some cultural, maybe some in terms of research organizations, universities, you might call it soft power. But if you really tell Canadians to go and join some wars in the far distant places like Second World War, I don't think you'll have much of response from Canadians.
Thank you so much. Just for the audience's knowledge sake, that I was fortunate to work under Professor Ahmed as his research assistant for some time on Rohingya crisis. We'll be covering that, but we'll take from NORAD. So, sir, despite deep US-Canada integration from NORAD to 2.5 billion in daily bilateral trade, Canada occasionally diverges from Washington. Where has Canadian foreign policy demonstrated strategic autonomy, and where has it remained tied to US? Every time we see they are following US, never led.
Again, I would say very timely question. When we are fighting tariff with our American brothers in the South, and the Trump 2.0 administration has actually is testing our strength and our resilience, and I think Canadians are very resilient in terms of trade. We have negotiated trade deals with many of the countries, and yes, it is a very difficult time for Canadians because we are not habituated with changing courses with the US. The volume of trade that happens, you see, because of the geographical proximity. But on a lighter note, a couple of weeks ago, Ontario government, led by Doug Ford, he came up with an ad.
Okay.
And this ad that goes back to 80s by Ronald Reagan. And of course, they did a lot of research, possibly that is how they got into this clip. So it is original. It doesn't have any kind of AI generated thing. So Ontario government, to the best of my knowledge, invested $75 million to get this ad into the various platforms,
wow,
including the Super Bowl advertisement. So it really was popular. I mean, popular means it reached to thousands and millions of all over the world. And That really made the president of the US very, very angry. And it was little critical timing wise, I would say, because US and Canada, they were all in Philippines, and they were meeting with ASEAN nation states, member states for trade and diplomacy and other things. And when this ad was aired, it definitely angered US president, and he just said that he didn't want to talk to Kearney at all. He's very angry, and he said that I'm not going to talk to Canadians, etc. So yes, this particular time is little critical. And does Canada have a sovereign foreign policy? So this question is kind of little tricky to answer, because every sovereign country must have their own foreign policy, right? Canada does have foreign policy, but the variable is whether it is independent. So that if you are interested in that part of this world, that whether it is independent or not, I would say that in today's world, each nation's foreign policy is sort of dependent on others. And I'm in Bangladesh now as I'm speaking with you, and when I live there in Canada, in my country, I think about this reality. And what is that reality? Reality is about neighbor. You can't change your neighbor.
Yeah.
You may disagree, you may hate your neighbor, but you can't change it.
We wanted to change a lot of time, but we also could not change.
Here you go. So this something has to be understood when you say whether your foreign policy is independent or not. Because in a globalized world, after the fall of Berlin Wall in 90s, what happened is our economy, our exchange of ideas, these are all intermingled. Although we hate globalism nowadays, many of these sense, but this is something you cannot, ignore. Some of the things you may have that independence of, taking decisions at your own, but many of the things are really, you have to think in terms of deciding when America is in the game. For example, during the Iraq War, if you remember, Jean Chrétien was our prime minister. He absolutely refrained to join the Americans and coalition of willing. It was the first time Canada declined.
Okay.
But Canada did participate in Afghanistan war with NATO. So yes, Canada has a degree of independence like any other countries, but again, you must not, overblow the idea that, you are too much subservient to Americans, because we took two countries, Canada and US, are really integrated in their foreign policy, initiatives and diplomacy and defense.
Very understandable. Just to ask, before asking the third question of total 5 questions to be asked to you, a supplementary question, may I ask that wit, humor and sarcasm is part of good leaders, good political leaders in the world. Once Trump says that he wants to take over Canada as the 51st state of United States, how Canadians feel? How you as a Canadian feel?
I felt bad, of course, and most of us felt bad, but we take it as a way of,
rhetoric.
Trump's rhetoric, and Mr. Trump is, of course, he is the US president, sitting president, and he says a lot of things, and it's okay. It is his prerogative, but Canada being the 51st state is really an overstretch, and there are so many memes going on about it. And but let me tell you one thing. Although it was a rhetoric, it really triggered a bit of nationalism amongst Canadians.
Oh, that's good.
Check most of the data that you have now. Canadian tourism in the US has declined by I think more than 40%.
Okay.
Canadians are not vacationing in the US. The liquor industry has seen a bit of drop, and initially when the tariff was declared and all these things, and this 51st concept was flowing, the liquor sale, American brands in Canada fell sharply, and still they didn't recover. And of course, there is no open, disagreement or let's say hostility, but this whole concept triggered a unity, a bondage amongst Canadians. For our audience here in Bangladesh, understanding Canadian society is difficult. Why? Because Canada is the second largest country in the world. It has 10 provinces, 3 territories. And for example, the province I live in, Manitoba, is 5 times larger than Bangladesh. Population is under 1 million. So it's very difficult to understand Canada in a homogeneous lens.
Yeah.
The way you perceive Bangladeshis within Bangladeshi territory is not replicable in Canada. Over 120, 30 nations people live in Canada. It's a multicultural society. Canada's strength is multiculturalism, and there are so many varieties. So it is difficult to fathom the diversity and the unity and this is why I'm saying that 51st state use of this rhetoric actually kind of brought Canadians together.
So there is some good in every bad thing.
Right.
So I go back to my homework. So Canada's Arctic strategy is now at the front line of Western competition with Russia and a fast expanding Chinese presence in polar research and shipping routes. Does Ottawa current Arctic posture stabilize northern geopolitics, or does it introduce fresh friction among Western allies? What lessons does this hold for smaller states like Bangladesh that depends on rules-based multilateralism?
Again, brilliant question, Dilwar. I appreciate your questions and very thoughtful questions. You have done a lot of research behind it. Just first to start, before I get into the nuts and bolts of this question, we have been very fortunate enough to receive a small grant under, it's called MINDS, MINDS.
Wow.
It's an acronym of Mobilizing Insights in Defense and Securities. It's a D&D funded project. We just received 2 months ago. We are working on it. The project has already started.
Are we working through CRIC?
Yes.
Okay.
It is a CRIC project. So this is the first time we received such a project, and this is exactly relates to your question. And our main thrust of this project is to understand what kind of indigenous population they live. So what kind of indigenous-led Arctic sovereignty looks like under the shifting U.S. strategic discussions and policy. Wow. This is the title of our project. In short, ICASUS, ICASUS. If you go to our website, www.cric.org, and if you scroll a little bit, you will find this project in the first, in the project tab, in the landing page. So you will have these details. So when we talk about Arctic sovereignty, you must understand that Canada is a circumpolar nation, and there is a conglomeration of nations, including Russia and many others, American. So many of the big powers are there already. Yes, we believe that Arctic is the new frontier, and over the decades of climate change, many of the things are changing in the Arctic too.
Yeah.
And of course, Arctic is very close to Canada's defense policy, because 3 of our territories are in the Arctic region,
yeah.
right? So these territories are very important. Peoples are living there, and we have to be careful about our people because they are all indigenous people living in those territories. I will really try to answer from our project angle so that you have a better sense what we are doing in terms of Arctic defense. The tension in Arctic is going to take shape in the next 10-15 years in 2 ways. Global climate change will open up navigable routes towards the north, and especially the province I live in, we have Hudson Bay in Churchill, close to Churchill. So it is possibly going to this whole area will allow ships to come. And just so that you know, Mike Kearney, our Prime Minister, has declared, it's called Super Plan, and he's investing tons of money in building number of projects, mega projects. So in one of the projects is this Churchill and building it up so that it can accommodate export and other things. So this is going to happen. Second thing is, once this whole area is becoming less cold and warming up, there will be problem with our indigenous people living there in terms of their livelihoods.
Right.
So how you are going to tackle those things? Third thing is, China is really interested in this area now. Russia was always, and Russia sent submarine, time to time again, and that is fine because there was and circumpolar nations have a coalition, right? Every year they sit. So Russia is known, stakeholder in this area, but China is not very much known what they want. So that remains a question. Maybe our strategic planners are already discussing. I'm not privy to that, but in our project, humble project, we are looking at a couple of things. We are trying to see whether the definition of state sovereignty can be shifted more towards human security.
Okay.
Because we believe indigenous people living in those territories must be given the resources, must be empowered to take on the risks and other things that is happening surrounding their life. Just so that we have Canadian Rangers living. They're all indigenous people, and they're part employed by DND and part they do their own stuffs. So this particular group is very interested. We are trying to understand how we bolster. And I'll only close by saying that Arctic defense is Canada's definite priority list, and Canada is working very hard on it. And this kind of changing realities is going to, give Canada further opportunities for export. Because Hudson Bay is a port, but also it will increase the vulnerability of Canada from the north.
Should Bangladesh or maybe countries like Maldives be aware of this?
Yes, climate change is really, reality. And as we speak today, COP is going on, COP, Conference of Parties in Brazil, this particular week, right? And they're talking about rising. But I think I didn't answer your last part of the question, whether Bangladesh and others, countries like this, should they be concerned about rules-based order. So this is another very, I would say, ongoing project. Off Creek, if you again scroll a little down in the homepage, you will find Rules of Law project that we launched a year ago. And in this project, and it's an ongoing thing, it's not connected with any other side projects. It's an overarching project led by our founder advisor, David Newman. And his vision is very clear, which he wrote, I think, quite candidly in our website. We are looking at holding states responsible for their actions, because we believe rules of law should be universal, whether it is small state or big state. And there must be some system in a global platform that will hold those who violate those things. For example, war against Ukraine, Russia should have been punished in some way or other. But again, we all know the problem in the UN Security Council and other things, but we strongly believe the survival of small countries like Bangladesh and others depend on our reliability, our confidence on the rules-based order.
I was really studying hard on rule-based order, and I knew that the question is coming here. So I have a question specifically on that. With Western sanctions regimes tightening, and Canada has ramped up economic and diplomatic pressure on Russia and China. Yet, China is also Canada's second largest trading partner. Let's accept the reality. Is Canada effectively defending the rules-based order, or is it risking strategic overreach that could backfire economically?
Good question once again, Dilwar. Very well researched once again. The global landscape is changing. Let's admit this fact. In 2025, end of 2025, we are seeing, I would say, quite a bit of shift triggered by US's tariff war once, and two of the major conflicts, armed conflicts, that is still ongoing. The Gaza conflict has not ended yet, although there is a truce or peace, but I don't think it has ended properly. And we are talking about Russia's invasion to Ukraine. So these are two, I would say, greater conflicts that we're talking about when we talk rules-based order.
Yep.
And also remember the problem in Sudan, internal security situation, and the Sudanese are facing famine. And also often in the West, we do forget that there is a greater armed conflict going on in Myanmar. And which brings me to Bangladesh, that to study Myanmar. And so if you look at these global hotspots, you really question whether rules-based order is in place. Because remember, Westphalian state, the model that we always believe in, is based on the idea, and if you go back to the UN Charter, that state sovereignty is sacrosanct. You cannot question state sovereignty. But if one big state thinks that others should not survive or exist, who is going to do the referee? There's nothing said in the international system.
Yeah.
It is his, whose. When Ukraine was attacked, what did we do all? We gave them some money, we gave them some weapons, that's all. Because NATO would not be involved, as we all know, Ukraine is not a NATO member, Article 5 will not be triggered, but the bigger question is who is going to save Ukraine? And similar thing if is replicated elsewhere, I'm afraid you don't have any solution. So smaller countries should be worried. What you call in the past, I think somebody wrote, Barry Buzan, or these are old theorists, security of small states. So this security of small states in a pure conventional term is really, really difficult now. And you see, when China's relationship with Canada we are talking about now is also complicated. It's also complicated because yes, we need to send more goods to China in order for our economic growth, but it is often determined by the US policies as well. Let me refer one case. The Huawei's chief financial officer, Meng Wanzhou, she was detained entering Canada 3-4 years back during Trudeau's era. And we were told that she is complicit in money laundering of Huawei. And we interned her, right? I mean, she was interned for nearly 3 years. And then when the strategic diplomacies, other things were going on, 2 of our Michaels were interned in China. So there was an exchange made that, okay, we'll release Meng Wanzhou, and Michaels were released. So Michaels came back safe and sound, and she went back. So this kind of things when started occurring, definitely China's relationship with Canada nosedived, right?
Exactly.
But it didn't recover well. And still we are on this, for example, the Chinese EV market, electric vehicle market, is absolutely, it cannot enter into Canada because of 100% tax, I think over 100% now. So Canada is kind of struggling to understand how to shape up its relationship with China. However, the silver lining is our Prime Minister was in Philippines, and he met with President Xi Jinping after almost a decade or 8 to 9 years at least. This is a one-to-one talk between the two leaders. I think things are thawing. Relationship will be a little warmer. China is considering Canada's embargo on other things, vice versa. So I think it is going to shape up a little differently. But again, Delwar, let me remind you that America will always remain a factor.
Always.
And it will definitely influence Canada's ongoing or future relationship with China.
Thank you, Professor. It's really a pleasure sitting beside you. Would have been great that there would have been a fireplace and we are sitting together and there is no camera and we are talking hours together. But we have to finish the program within the stipulated time, and now we are at the last question to be asked you. Beyond hard security, Canada exerts influence through peacekeeping heritage, universities, migration pathways, and development assistance. Where has this soft power shifted actual policy outcomes in the global north, and where has it failed to convert cultural influence into geopolitical leverage, particularly compared to European middle powers like European Union?
Delwar, thank you. Again, very contemporary issue that you brought out today, and I think our audience in Bangladesh should have a fair bit of idea what is happening in Canada. Yes, Canada's soft power, I think it was enormous. I mean, think about myself. I was drawn to Canada because of its excellent, research facilities, public universities, and especially as a student of peace and conflict studies, I just couldn't find any other country that offers such a package. So I ended up in Canada. Canada's policy in immigration is changing, but there are some ground realities. Don't critique a Liberal Party or Mr. Carney's immigration policy outright. Think about the reality. The way we were accepting immigrants, over 200,000 a year, than international students, at some point that was normal, but it was not, because our supporting structure for example, housing, for example, transportation, they collapsed. If you go to Toronto, a single bedroom with a washroom and a living room would cost you $2,200 a month. Just imagine how international students can cope up with this enormous exorbitant price for their livelihood every day. It is impossible. So I think Mr. Carney's government has taken a prudent decision, although it doesn't seem to be welcoming immigrants at this point in time. But when our supporting structure, housing, etc., cope up with the current level of immigration, I think Canada will open up again. Your second point is that Canada's soft power with regards to other things, and I think Canada has a capability of donation. In the development sector alone, Canada is one of the largest contributors.
True.
I forgot the numbers exactly, doesn't come to my mind, but if you Google search any reliable source, authentic source, you will find Canada is one of the top donors in the development sectors. In a very micro way, I just spoke about the macro, kind of Canada's contribution in a macro way, but in a very micro level, let me tell you, CRIC, our tiny organization, received funding from Manitoba Council for International Cooperation. Okay. In short, it's called MCIC. It is based out in Winnipeg, and it gives out money to smaller organizations like us to implement projects outside Canada. So we are recipient of 3-4 projects now, small tiny one, but still. So this is how is Canada's model. Canada does invest tremendously in Africa, in Asia, and in developing nations, and it is continuing. But yes, over these 2-3 years, it is declining a little bit, and the reason is declining because Canada's economic forecast is not good. Okay. We are just marginally surviving to avoid recession. If there is another negative growth, we will definitely be officially in recession. So yes, government of Canada has to make a balance in terms of spending and in terms of global good that we say. But I think Canada will continue investing in global development.
Thank you so much, Professor. We are at the fag end of our discussion today. As a man from North visiting his motherland on a short tour, may I ask you to give you a concluding remark, including the purpose of your visit?
Thank you, Delwar, for again asking me and giving me the opportunity to share what we are doing now. Dear audience, we at Conflict and Resilience Research Institute Canada, we are implementing a Global Affairs Canada's project called Charting a Lasting Peace in Myanmar. It's a 2 years funded project, and this is our second phase of the project. In first phase, we have finished our concept note development and presented in the first global summit last month in September in Winnipeg. And we have now brought this concept note in Bangladesh to share with our many Bangladeshi organizations and friends and scholars, practitioners like you. And we are seeking your inputs, and we are incorporating. Since I arrived, we have attended 5 such sessions, workshops, seminars, okay. And there are 4 to go. So total 9. So within this short span, we have planned quite ambitiously in this way, so that we hear back from you. Our principal collaborator in Bangladesh is Center for Alternatives, led by Professor Dr. Imtiaz Ahmed. With him, we are going to many people and organizations just to understand whether our plan is really something practical. And your inputs are very important. and Delwar said that I should conclude. I would only say that folks in Bangladesh, that Canada is a great friend of yours. Look at me, I do put on two hats, Canadian and Bangladeshi, and I'm proud of both of my identities. I don't consider one identity over other,
right.
And I'm very proud. I'm proud of the organization that I belong to, that is Bangladesh military, Bangladesh Army. For nearly 2 decades, Bangladesh Army shaped my ideas. Bangladesh Army trained me in speaking English. So all these things really go back to the Bangladesh Army as an organization preparing me in my second career. And finally, I would only say that Rohingya crisis is Bangladesh's topmost crisis since its independence. That is what we are saying. For many reasons, go to our website, project website, and you will see a lot of details. And Bangladesh, now we are asking Bangladesh, what would be your strategy in the next couple of years? Because this is really important. Of course, Bangladesh is going through a transition. We fully understand it, but we are requesting that Bangladesh should come up with a solid long-term strategy to deal with the Rohingya crisis, because in no way Rohingya crisis should be a protracted one. Then you have serious problem given the geopolitical reality of Bangladesh. Thank you once again for being with me. Delwar, thank you for your time and your brilliant questions.
Thank you so much, sir. And we are going to assure our audience that since you are in a short trip in Bangladesh, we are also going to cover another episode at least. Thank you for coming today. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you.
Dear viewers, আপনারা সবসময় আমাদের চেসবোর্ডের সাথেই আছেন। আমাদের চেসবোর্ডের ফেসবুক পেজ, চেসবোর্ডের ইউটিউব চ্যানেল এবং চেসবোর্ডের টুইটার হ্যান্ডেল যে আছে তাতে সাবস্ক্রাইব করুন এবং আপডেটেড থাকুন। আমরা আপনাদের মতামত শুনতে চাই। আপনারা কি বলতে চান, কি জানতে চান আমাদের জানাতে ভুলবেন না। ধন্যবাদ। চেসবোর্ডের সাথেই থাকুন। আসসালামু আলাইকুম।